There is a kind of power that moves like breath in a cathedral. You don't hear it, but you feel it. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't beg to be seen. It just is. Unmistakable, unshakable, unmoved by noise. You've known this power, not in others, but in you. In fleeting moments, in silent decisions, in the still presence you carry when the world is loud and directionless. This world worships volume. Noise has become currency. People now measure truth by its reach, not its depth. They trust the message that travels fastest, not the one that travels truest. And somewhere along the way, the sacred art of silence was mistaken for weakness. But let's get honest. You've always felt out of place in the noise. Maybe you were told that in order to be seen, you had to be louder, to talk more, post more, sell harder, shine brighter, to chase visibility with such intensity that you began to lose your voice in the process. But every time you tried, something inside resisted, not out of fear, not out of laziness, but because some part of you, and the ancient part, remembered a different rhythm. You knew there was another way, and you were right. This message isn't for the ones who want quick attention. It's not for those who inflate their image hoping the world will believe it before they do. It's for the ones who know that fire doesn't need to be noisy to be real. There is a silent power woven into the deepest fabric of who you are. It doesn't rush, it doesn't prove, it doesn't perform, it holds, it watches, it chooses when to move. And when it does, it cannot be stopped. This power doesn't come from popularity. It comes from alignment, from understanding how the invisible governs the visible, from living in inner command, not outer reaction. Napoleon Hill knew this. When he wrote Think and Grow Rich, he wasn't speaking to the crowd. He was speaking to the few who understood that real wealth begins with discipline, not desire alone. He knew that silent conviction shapes reality more than noise ever could, and yet most never hear this message, because it doesn't scream. It doesn't sell false promises. It doesn't seduce with shortcuts. It whispers. It waits for the one who's ready to stop chasing and start listening. You don't need more exposure. You need more clarity. You don't need to go viral, you need to go inward. There's a reason you feel exhausted after trying to be like them, the loud ones, the ones who seem magnetic, confident, untouchable. But watch closely. They're often the ones who fall hardest, because what they built was never rooted in truth. It was rooted in validation, and validation has an expiration date. The real ones move differently. They don't chase light. They become it. They don't scream. Their value, they embody it. And when they speak, even once, and the world listens, not because of volume, money, but because of weight. This is the power you've always sensed in you, but never knew how to name. It's not arrogance, it's not performance, it's not even ambition in the way the world defines it. It's the inner authority that comes from alignment with something eternal. This authority doesn't need to prove anything, because it already knows. So if you're tired of pretending you need to be louder to be powerful, if you're done chasing every new formula to get seen, if you're starting to question whether the noise even leads anywhere worth going, then you're ready. You're ready to reclaim the one thing the world can't fabricate: silent power. Not silence that hides, not silence that apologizes, but silence that commands because it's rooted in truth. In the chapters ahead, we will dismantle the myth of volume. We will return to the natural laws of influence and alignment. We will reconnect with the inner flame that never flickered, even when the world tried to blow it out. And you'll remember, not learn but remember, that you were never meant to compete with echoes. You were born to embody the mountain, not to speak over storms but to outlast them. The loud ones fail not because they are evil, but because they are untethered. Their volume replaces their vision. Their urgency replaces their wisdom. They rise quickly and then collapse just as fast, but not you. Not anymore. This time you will rise differently, slowly, silently, powerfully. Not with noise, but with knowing. You were told to speak up, to take space, to make yourself known, to raise your hand higher, talk faster, smile wider, play louder. You were told that visibility is victory, that if no one sees you, you don't exist, that silence is death, not discipline. And so you tried. You adapted. You stepped into the echo chamber, even if it didn't feel like home. At first, it was thrilling. The lights, the affirmation, the attention. You began shaping your voice around what got a response, a like, a comment, a compliment. You trimmed your edges. You softened your truth. You borrowed energy that wasn't yours. And somewhere between the branding and the pretending, your center slipped. This is the noise trap. The illusion that volume is influence. That to be known you must be everywhere. That silence is invisibility. That quiet conviction is not enough, and the world feeds this trap. It exalts the loud ones, the ones who know how to fill a room, even if they're empty inside. The ones who can echo the current trend, even if it's not their truth. They seem magnetic. Their certainty is contagious, but watch closely. Their confidence is often a performance, and their voice, though loud, rarely lands in the heart, because they are speaking from scarcity, not center. From the hunger to be seen, not the power to reveal. From the craving for response, not the clarity of purpose. That's why they fail, not all at once, but slowly, subtly. They stop listening. They stop evolving. They build a life of mirrors, not roots. And inside, they know, they feel the gap growing between who they are and who they've been pretending to be. But what about you? You didn't come here for applause. You came here for truth. You didn't start this journey to prove yourself. You started it to become yourself. And yet, you still feel the pull of the noise, the way it hijacks your focus, the way it whispers that you're not doing enough, that if people aren't noticing you, you must be behind. It's exhausting, not because you're lazy, but because you're wired for depth, not display, and trying to stay visible in a world addicted to surface-level validation. It's like screaming into the wind and wondering why no one hears your heart. You weren't built for that. You weren't made to chase every algorithm change or build a brand around someone else's strategy. You weren't meant to compete with people who don't even know who they are. You were never supposed to spend your life amplifying a version of you that leaves your soul out of the equation. Let's say this plainly. Noise is not your language, and your power. It never lived in your performance, it lived in your presence. The quiet certainty you carry when you are clear on who you are, what you want, and what no longer defines you. But the noise doesn't care about clarity. It trades in confusion. It profits off your panic. It thrives when you doubt yourself just enough to stay in the loop, always consuming, never creating. This is not your rhythm. This is not your way. Napoleon Hill never glorified the noise. He warned of it. He named it drifting. The condition of mind that surrenders to outer forces instead of commanding from within. In Think and Grow Rich, Hill wrote that any idea, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind through repetition of thought. But the world will fill your mind with noise unless you choose what takes root. And if you've spent years repeating their noise in your mind, it makes perfect sense that you've lost touch with your own frequency. So we begin here by telling the truth. You're tired. You're smart, you're strong, you've done the work, but you are tired of pretending noise is success. You are tired of measuring your growth by metrics that feel meaningless. You are tired of showing up like you're on all the time. Because here's what no one told you. Real power doesn't need to be on. It needs to be aligned. When you're aligned, silence speaks. When you're aligned, you walk into a room and the atmosphere shifts, without you needing to announce your presence. When you're aligned, people don't respond to your marketing. They respond to your being. But if you're living in the noise trap, you don't get to experience that. You're stuck managing impressions, trying to keep up, running in a race you never agreed to run. And this is where we stop. This is the rupture point, not with them, with the pattern, because the loud ones aren't your enemy. They're just people who've mistaken energy for embodiment. And you've been tempted to do the same. But now you know. That kind of power doesn't last. It collapses under pressure, because it was never centered, only projected. You weren't made to project power. You were made to become it. Quietly. Honestly, completely. This chapter was not written to shame you for being caught in the noise. It was written to name it, so you could finally walk out. No more shouting just to feel significant. No more mimicking just to feel safe. No more chasing voices that were never yours to begin with. The world will continue to reward the noise. Let it. Your reward is different, because what you are building now cannot be shaken, cannot be bought, and does not depend on anyone seeing it. Before you believe in it, you are not invisible. You are becoming inevitable. But first, you must get quiet enough to hear yourself again. There is a reason the deepest waters are silent, a reason the strongest people are often the least reactive, and a reason the most influential ones don't need to explain their influence, because real power, the kind that moves worlds, is governed by law, not by luck, not by charisma, not by noise. This is the law no one teaches. Power flows to the still, not the scattered. Napoleon Hill tried to tell us. In quiet phrases buried in his chapters, Hill spoke of a truth that most readers miss, that wealth, success, and influence are not chased. They are magnetized by inner order. Let that land. Your life does not expand because of outer action alone. It expands because of inner precision. Stillness is not passive. It is magnetic. It is structured. It is charged with invisible momentum. But no one teaches you this, because stillness doesn't perform. It doesn't promote. It doesn't go viral. And because our world is obsessed with force and not flow, from childhood you were taught to move faster, work harder, be louder, stay busy. Stillness was punished. Slowness was pathologized. Silence was interpreted as absence, not presence. But nature has always known the truth. The mountain never raises its voice, and yet no one doubts its presence. The ocean doesn't need to explain itself. Its depth is self-evident. Even the stars say nothing, and yet they guide entire civilizations. So why were you taught to chase? Why were you taught that your worth must be shouted to be believed? Because the system benefits from your unrest. Because the marketplace profits when you feel behind. Because confused people are easier to sell to. But truth doesn't sell itself. It becomes itself. Napoleon Hill laid the foundation with these words: there are no limitations to the mind except those we acknowledge, and the subconscious mind will translate into reality a thought driven by fear or by faith. Here's the key. The law is neutral. It doesn't respond to your performance, it responds to your dominant vibration, the emotional tone you carry in stillness. So ask yourself, when you are quiet, when no one is watching, when you are not on, what signal are you sending? Because that is what life is responding to. Not your output, but your origin. You've been trying to willpower your way into alignment. You've been hoping that strategy will fix what only inner authority can. But the law doesn't yield to force. It yields to congruence. Congruence is when your thoughts, emotions, words, and actions match. No contradiction, no pretending, no splintered identity. This is what Hill meant by definiteness of purpose. It's not just knowing what you want, it's becoming aligned with it so completely that life must respond. But let's be honest, no one taught you how to do that. You were taught how to set goals, not how to command identity. You were told to stay consistent, but never shown how to be coherent. You were told to visualize, but never taught how to hold emotional resonance with what you see. So you've been trying to manifest with your mind, but living out of alignment in your nervous system. And the law? It sees the nervous system. It sees the emotion beneath the intention. It sees the inner posture, not the outer performance. This is why loud people can rise fast, but they don't last. They build castles on noise, not laws, on gimmicks, not gravity, but gravity doesn't need to shout. It just pulls, quietly, unrelentingly, unfailingly. So what would happen if you stopped trying to be seen and started becoming still? Enough to hold what you're really here to carry? What would shift if your energy was no longer scattered across every platform, every perception, every external scoreboard, and instead gathered into centered intention? Hill's secret, the true one, was never in the tactics. It was in the law of vibration. He just wrapped it in practical language to keep it accessible. When the emotion of faith is blended with thought, the subconscious mind instantly picks up the vibration. This isn't poetry. This is physics. This is spiritual architecture. Stillness is the evidence of inner faith. And when your inner world is steady, your external world must reorganize. The world will tell you this is naive. That silence doesn't sell. That clarity without visibility is useless. But here's what Hill knew, and what you are now remembering. Clarity becomes visibility. Stillness becomes movement. Inner certainty becomes external command, not instantly, but inevitably. This is what it means to think and grow rich, to become so inwardly precise that the outer world must adjust, to become so emotionally disciplined that you stop reacting to shadows and start building in light, to become so spiritually attuned that you no longer hope for success, you expect it, not because of arrogance, but because of alignment. This is the law no one teaches. Stillness is strategy, silence is structure, presence is the plan. And when you are rooted in these, you become unshakable. Not immune to challenge, but unmoved by noise, you become the still water and suddenly the whole sky reflects in you. In ancient temples, there were inner chambers where only the initiated could enter. Not because they were exclusive, but because the unprepared would desecrate what they could not understand. The holiest spaces were sealed, guarded, held in. Silence, because power in its raw form is not to be broadcast, it is to be embodied. You are that temple, and your voice, your ideas, your calling. They are not content for consumption. They are codes, spiritual architecture, living intelligence waiting to be made real, not shared too soon. But we live in a world that reverses this. We're told to share everything while it's still forming, to publish our process, to speak before we're sure, to release every idea the moment it arrives, as if revelation is only valuable once it's seen. But here's the truth. Some things lose their potency the moment they're exposed. Not because they are fragile, but because they were meant to mature in silence. This is the sacred practice of withholding. Not withholding out of fear, not withholding out of scarcity, but withholding out of reverence. To withhold is to honor divine timing. It is to recognize that not everything you feel, see, or receive is meant to be spoken. Yet, to withhold is to protect your seed before it's a tree, to guard your flame until it becomes firelight, to sit with what is growing inside you until it can stand on its own. This is not hiding, this is holding. Hill wrote, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." But most do the opposite. They tell the world, and then crumble under the pressure to deliver. They externalize too early. They invite feedback before form. They open their temple before the altar is built. And what happens? The vision leaks. The power dilutes. The original clarity gets warped by the noise of 10,000 opinions. You've done this. We all have. You've shared a dream before it was ready. You've posted something sacred just to feel momentum. You've rushed to explain something your soul hadn't fully processed. And afterward, you felt empty. Not because your idea was wrong, but because you abandoned the incubation. You broke the seal too soon. But now you know better. Withholding isn't resistance. It's maturity. It's trust in divine process. It's understanding that true power doesn't panic. It doesn't need to prove anything early. It doesn't fear being missed. It waits, not with anxiety, but with authority. To practice sacred withholding is to become your own temple priest, to discern what is ready for the world and what is still becoming. To stop measuring your progress by visibility and start measuring it by vibrational integrity. Try this. The next time you feel a breakthrough coming, a realization, a message, a vision, don't share it. Write it. Hold it. Breathe with it. Ask it questions. Let it teach you before you teach others, because the first person it's meant to transform is you. The moment you externalize too early, you risk performing it instead of becoming it. And performance is fragile, but embodiment is indestructible. This practice is not just spiritual, it's strategic. The loud ones leak power. They spend energy explaining what they haven't embodied. They waste attention on surface-level declarations instead of deep integration, and then they wonder why nothing sticks, why their audience grows but their influence weakens, why their goals manifest but their peace disappears, because they never practiced inner containment. They never learned the sacred delay. They never understood that potency is born in patience. Napoleon Hill did. He understood the value of autosuggestion, repeating thought and belief to the subconscious until it becomes law. But he also knew that autosuggestion works best when it's internalized first, not spoken prematurely. The subconscious mind is more susceptible to influence when one is alone. Why? Because solitude sharpens the signal. Because the presence of others, even well-meaning, can distort your frequency. Because your deepest convictions must echo in your own chambers before they ever reach the world. So here is your ritual. Just one. Simple, sacred, the withholding window. Each day, set aside 15 minutes. No phone, no talking, no output. Just sit with what you know, what you're feeling, what's arriving. Ask one question. What have I been rushing to share that I was meant to become? And then wait. Breathe. Don't post. Don't explain. Just hold. Hold the seed until it roots. Hold the message until it matures. Hold the clarity until it calibrates you first. What happens next is not dramatic, but it is powerful. Your inner world will begin to reorganize around coherence. You'll stop needing feedback to validate what you already know. You'll stop sharing from lack. You'll begin speaking only when it's time, and when you do speak, it will land, because it won't be a performance. It will be a vibration of truth. This is the secret the loud ones never learn. That noise can never replace knowing. That exposure is not evolution. That withholding is not delay. It is devotion. You are not becoming less by sharing less. You are becoming more by finally aligning your inner world with divine order. You are building the sealed temple again, not to shut the world out, but to create a space where your power can take form and rise in silence, in structure, in sacred command. There's a voice inside you, not the one you speak with, not the one that tells stories to others, but the one that speaks to you, constantly, invisibly, undeniably. This voice decides what's possible. It interprets every experience. It answers every question you never say out loud. Am I ready? Will this work? Do I matter? And the answer it gives, that becomes the life you live. It's not your effort that shapes your reality. It's not your skill. It's not even your belief in general. It's your default inner response when no one's watching. This is what Napoleon Hill was trying to tell us. Not just that thoughts become things, but that thoughts become systems. And if your inner system is corrupted by contradiction, no outer strategy will save you, because the inner voice is not neutral. It repeats what it was taught. It echoes what you've allowed. It mimics the people and patterns that shaped your early identity. So if you were raised around scarcity, it speaks in doubt. If you were rewarded for performance, it speaks in pressure. If you were surrounded by noise, it speaks in urgency. And that voice is running your life. It tells you when to start and when to shrink. It tells you what's risky and what's possible. It narrates your worth a moment by moment, decision by decision. So if you've been trying to change your outcomes without changing this voice, you've been fighting gravity with glitter. Let that sink in. The loud ones ignore the voice. They cover it with content. They perform over it until it becomes a faint hum, just enough to keep them chasing approval, never alignment. But you're here to do something different. You're here to tune the instrument, not just play the song. And that means one thing: you must reprogram the signal not once, not with hype, but with sacred repetition. Hill called this autosuggestion, the process of intentionally feeding the subconscious mind new commands until it obeys. But most people misuse this. They recite affirmations with no emotion. They repeat words with no embodiment. They say, "I am confident," while vibrating in fear. That's not reprogramming. That's spiritual noise. Real autosuggestion only works when emotion, belief, and repetition converge. Any thought, plan, or purpose may be placed in the mind by repetition, blended with emotion and backed by faith. Napoleon Hill. So here is the practice, simple, potent, daily, not to manipulate your reality, but to recalibrate your identity. inner voice reprogramming ritual. Sit in stillness, 2 minutes. No music, no goals, just breath. Let the old voice speak. Don't argue with it, just hear it. Name it, let it say the doubts, the fears, the limits, witness it. Without agreement, speak the truth 5 minutes out loud, slowly. Not what you want to believe, what you're ready to become. For example, I no longer need to be loud to be powerful. I speak only when it's time, and my silence is just as strong. My inner voice is tuned to divine certainty. I remember who I am and I return to it now. Say each truth until you feel it, not just once, not to check a box, until your cells start to agree. Seal with emotion, 1 minute. Close your eyes. See yourself walking in that truth, not hoping, knowing. Feel the steadiness, the quiet command, the internal calm. Anchor it, breathe it in. This is not performance. This is pattern interruption. This is you stepping in between the old command and the automatic reaction. And at first, it may feel fake. Of course it does. Your nervous system is calibrated to a different frequency. But here's what Hill knew, and what you must trust. Whatever the mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. Not just when you say it, but when you train your system to believe it as the default. That's what reprogramming is. Changing your spiritual posture so completely that the new truth becomes the new norm. You've been running the old voice for years. Is it any wonder your outcomes keep looping? Now you break the loop. But listen, this isn't a one-time fix. This is spiritual fitness. Just like the body, the voice must be trained, and trained in silence, not for applause. Because what matters is not what you say in public, but what your mind whispers to you before you make the next decision. That's the difference between the loud ones, Auntie, and you. They chase certainty from the outside in. You cultivate it from the inside out. They override their doubts with ego. You transmute yours with discipline. They hope their voice will carry them. You've chosen to tune yours until it becomes a spiritual instrument. This is the chapter where the outer world starts to change, because the inner architect has awakened. You are no longer reacting. You are reprogramming, with intention, with reverence, with complete clarity that your life can only rise to the level of the voice you believe. And now it's changing. There is a moment, after the silence, after the shedding, after the deep reprogramming, when something stirs. Not loudly, not dramatically, but undeniably. A fire begins to rise, not the wild kind that scorches for show, not the kind that dances to be admired. This one doesn't perform, it becomes, this is the quiet flame, and if you're reading this, it's awakening in you now. It is the return of self-command, the reactivation of your original design, the moment when your outer identity begins to align with your inner knowing, and the need to be loud disappears. Let this land. You don't need to explain power you now embody. You've been taught to earn your space, to build your voice, to make a name. But those who carry true power don't carry a brand. They carry a frequency. They are recognized, not marketed. They are remembered, not advertised. They emanate authorities because they've become aligned with it inside. That's what's happening to you. Not all at once, but surely you are beginning to feel the shift. You speak slower because you're not chasing validation. You show up clearer because confusion is no longer your currency. You move with intent because you finally trust your internal compass more than the crowd. This is what Hill meant by faith fused with purpose, not blind belief, but embodied direction. When you become so internally convinced of who you are and what you are here to do, that reality must bend, because you're no longer negotiating. You're no longer broadcasting to be believed. You are. This is identity activation. And it's not a feeling, it's a frequency. You'll know it by the way silence becomes easier. By the way you stop needing to post every insight. By the way you start to protect your energy like it's currency, because now it is. This doesn't mean you won't speak. It means when you do, the room will listen, because you are no longer speaking from strategy. You're speaking from substance. No more borrowed fire, no more mimicry, no more performance cloaked in passion. This is your flame now, and it doesn't flicker. It burns through stone. You've become someone people feel before they hear. Someone who doesn't force results, but makes space for inevitability. You'll walk into places and no longer wonder how you compare, because the inner voice has been tuned. The old noise is gone, and the quiet inside you now commands the atmosphere outside you. And here's the most profound part. You will no longer need to convince yourself, because the battle for belief is over. That's what the quiet flame ends. The internal tug-of-war, the subconscious sabotage, the subtle panic that once whispered, "What if I'm not enough?" Now there is only knowing, and knowing moves different. You're not in a rush anymore, because you're rooted. You're not performing anymore, because you're present. You're not projecting anymore, because you've come home. And from this place, once you begin to act, not react, act. From center, from stillness, from the flame that now burns beneath everything you do. Hill said, "The starting point of all achievement is desire." But he also said, "Desire backed by faith knows no such word as impossible. And what is faith if not identity remembered? What is impossibility if not an illusion created by a self-image too small? Not anymore. You've remembered, you've reclaimed, and now you've risen. No one else may notice the shift right away. It won't come with fanfare, but watch what starts to change. People will start responding to your presence before your words. Opportunities will begin seeking you without you hustling to find them. Resistance will start to dissolve, not because you're trying harder, but because you're no longer in conflict with yourself. You've become the thing you once chased. You've stopped trying to be fire and started being fuel. So let's get specific. What does identity activation look like? It looks like saying no without explaining, creating from alignment, not obligation, protecting your mornings like sacred space. No longer negotiating your worth based on attention, moving slower and trusting that you're still on time, keeping some things completely private because you no longer need to prove. It looks like becoming unmistakably you, not polished, not perfect, but present, unapologetically, because power that is owned does not apologize, it just becomes. And now so do you. This isn't hype. This isn't a new you. This is the ancient you, the one beneath all the masks, finally. Coming forward. It doesn't come with a bang, it comes with breath, it comes with mornings that feel spacious again, with moments where your shoulders drop and your jaw softens. Because the internal war is over, the flame doesn't need attention, it needs oxygen. And now that you've cleared the noise, the fire inside can finally breathe. So what do you do now? You walk the world differently, not because the world has changed, but because you have. Your presence has become a quiet transmission. Your movement is now a message, and your silence speaks volumes. The loud ones will still perform. Let them. Their world runs on batteries, and batteries die, but your power is different. It's fire. It's fuel. It's the flame beneath the mountain that never needed to be seen to shape the earth. You will walk the same streets. You will rise at the same hour. You will pass the same faces, sit in the same meetings, pour the same coffee. But something will feel different now. Not because the world has changed to become a mine, but because your compass is awake. And once your compass is alive, you stop living by the clock. The loud ones still live by the clock. They race time, chase relevance, fear stillness. They confuse momentum with meaning, visibility with victory. But you are now tuned to something deeper. Your decisions will no longer come from pressure. They will come from presence. You will know when to speak, and when silence says more. You will know when to act, and when your energy is worth conserving. You will feel the weight of your words again, and choose each one like a stone in a sacred wall. The inner voice you once questioned, now it leads and it doesn't shout. It just knows. This is the invisible shift, and the world may not understand it at first because it's not flashy, it's not dramatic, it doesn't beg to be seen, but you'll know it's real by the fruit. Your peace won't be fragile. Your boundaries won't tremble. Your clarity won't vanish when others disapprove. Your worth won't inflate with attention or deflate in its absence. You'll start to notice the noise, not as a threat, but as a choice you no longer make. You'll hear it in conversations, in social scrolls, in urgency culture. You'll recognize the desperation because it used to live in you. But now there's only room for direction. This is what Napoleon Hill meant when he said, "One comes to believe whatever one repeats to oneself, whether the statement is true or false. You've stopped repeating the lie. Now you live the truth, not because you made it, but because you've tuned your life around what you now remember. That stillness is not absence, it's alignment. That silence is not weakness, it's waiting. That true power is not proven, it's recognized by those attuned to feel it. The flame inside you is permanent now. You've stopped needing it to flare up to prove it's real, because you no longer use fire to be seen. You use it to see, to discern, to refine, to guide. The sealed temple inside you is open only to the sacred, and that means not everyone gets access. Not everyone gets your time. Not everyone gets your energy. And that is not cold. It is clarity. You've become the kind of person who leads without performing, who creates from essence, not effort, who makes decisions from alignment, not anxiety. This is power, not the kind that trends, the kind that transcends. It is the kind Hill was always pointing to, but few ever slow down enough to find. The kind that builds wealth not only in dollars, but in integrity. Not only in influence, but in internal freedom. And now it's yours. Not because you shouted, not because you proved anything, but because you remembered the one truth that undoes the whole lie. You don't have to become louder to be powerful. You only have to become aligned. Let them keep chasing attention. Let them keep performing. Your compass is set. Your flame is steady. Your voice is tuned. You've always carried the code. Now you have the key. Use it, walk the same world, but never the same way.